5 things Claude can do to a document in under 2 minutes each. No complex setup, no prior Claude experience required beyond knowing how to open a conversation and paste text. Each one replaces a task that currently takes 15 minutes or more, done manually, carefully, by a lawyer who has better things to do with that time. All 5 prompts are in a free PDF in the description. Download it before you watch, or pause and grab it at the end. The prompts are copy ready. You don't need to remember them. You just need to paste them in and fill in the specifics for your matter. Before we get into the 5 wins, one thing that applies to all of them. Every prompt in this episode includes the verify instruction, or a reminder to check the output. Claude does not access Westlaw, LexisNexis, or any live legal database. Everything it produces needs a professional eye before it goes anywhere. These prompts save you significant time on the task. They don't replace your judgment on the output. That stays with you. Right. Let's get into it. Quick win number 1. Rewriting a clause to favor your client. Here's the situation. You've received a draft from the other side. There's a clause that's unfavorable. Liability is too broad. The termination right is too easily triggered. The indemnity is too wide. You need to redraft it in a way that protects your client's position without blowing up the negotiation or departing so far from the original that the other side rejects it entirely. Manually, that's a 15 to 20-minute task, reading the clause carefully, thinking through the risk, drafting the redraft, reviewing it. With Claude, it's 30 seconds. Here's the prompt. I act for party. Rewrite the following clause to better protect my client's interests. Keep the commercial intent of the clause intact, but shift the risk, liability, and obligations to favor my client. Flag with verify anything you're not certain about. Here is the clause. Paste clause. 3 things make this prompt work. First, telling Claude who you act for, so it knows which direction to shift the risk. Second, the instruction to keep the commercial intent intact, which stops Claude producing something so one-sided the other side won't engage with it. Third, the verify flag, because Claude will sometimes make changes that have implications it hasn't flagged, particularly around jurisdiction-specific rules on certain clause types. What comes back is a redrafted clause with a brief note on what changed and why. Review it, adjust the tone to fit where you are in the negotiation, and it's ready to go. If the matter is complex or the clause is unusual, run the opposition read on the redraft before it goes out. Read this revised clause as the other side's lawyer. What would they push back on and why? 2 prompts, 2 minutes, a redraft that would have taken 20. Quick win number 2. Extracting every obligation your client carries under a contract. Commercial agreements, especially longer ones, bury obligations in body text, schedules, defined terms, and ancillary provisions. A thorough manual read to pull every obligation your client carries, attribute it correctly, and note the deadline or trigger event takes 45 minutes to an hour on a complex agreement. And even then, something gets missed. A subclause in a schedule, an obligation triggered by an event rather than a date that's easy to overlook. Claude doesn't miss things the way manual reads do because it processes the entire document rather than reading progressively. The prompt. Read this contract. Extract every obligation imposed on client name or party. For each obligation, the clause number, what my client must do, any deadline or trigger event, and the consequence of non-compliance. Present as a numbered list. Do not include obligations imposed on the other party. The do not include obligations imposed on the other party instruction matters more than it looks. Without it, Claude produces a list of everything, and you're back to reading through it manually to find your client's obligations. The instruction scopes the output to exactly what you need. What comes back is a numbered list, clause reference, obligation, trigger or deadline, consequence of breach. That list is the basis of a client obligations briefing note. Add a covering paragraph, verify the key obligations against the document, and you have a deliverable in a fraction of the time it would have taken to produce manually. Quick win number 3. Generating a defined terms reference sheet from a complex agreement. This is the one that sounds simple until you've spent 20 minutes on a complex financing agreement, trying to track what business day means in this particular document, how material adverse change is defined, whether group includes subsidiaries or doesn't, and whether losses captures consequential losses or not. Defined terms are buried across multiple clauses, schedules, and sometimes annexures. Keeping track of them while reviewing a long document is slow, and the consequences of misreading a defined term can be significant. The prompt: extract every defined term from this agreement. For each, the term as defined, the definition in full, and the clause where it's defined. Present as an alphabetical reference table. Flag any term that appears to be used in the agreement but is not formally defined. The last instruction, flag terms used but not defined, is where this prompt earns its time saved. Undefined terms in a contract are a drafting error and a source of ambiguity disputes. Claude catching them in the initial review saves a negotiation conversation later about what a term was supposed to mean. What comes back is an alphabetical table you can keep open while reviewing the document. Every time a defined term appears in a clause you're reviewing, you know exactly what it means without searching back through the document. 20 to 30 minutes saved, and a cleaner review as a result. Quick win number 4. Spotting every change between two versions of a document. Track changes is fine for short documents. For a 40-page agreement that's come back from the other side with modifications, track changes tells you what changed, but it doesn't tell you what any of it means. It doesn't tell you which changes favor which party. It doesn't tell you which changes are material to your client's position and which are cosmetic. You still have to read every changed clause and think about the implications. Claude does that analysis as part of the comparison. The prompt: I'm uploading two versions of the same agreement. Document 1 is the original, document 2 is the revised version. Identify every change between them. For each change, what was in the original, what's in the revised version, which party the change favors, and whether the change is material or cosmetic. The material versus cosmetic distinction is the key output. When a document comes back from the other side with 30 changes, most of them are cosmetic: grammar, formatting, defined term substitutions. The 5 material changes are the ones that need your attention and the client's instructions. Claude surfaces those 5 immediately. You don't read 30 changes to find them. Verify the material changes against the original document before you advise on them. Claude's characterization of which party a change favors is a starting point, not a final analysis. But as a starting point, it's 30 minutes of reading compressed into 2. Quick win number 5. Checking whether a notice was validly given under a contract clause. Notice clause disputes are technical and more common than they should be. The clause specifies a method of service, an address, a time frame, and sometimes a required form of words. Checking whether the notice that was actually given complies with all of those requirements means reading the clause carefully, reading the notice, establishing the facts of service, and comparing all 3 systematically. It's not intellectually complex, but it's exacting. Miss one requirement and the advice is wrong. Claude does the comparison systematically and flags every gap. The prompt: here is the notice clause from the agreement. Paste clause. Here are the facts of how notice was given. Describe method, date, recipient, address. Has notice been validly given under this clause? If not, identify exactly where compliance has failed and what would be required to remedy it. Flag anything uncertain with verify. The verify instruction is particularly important here. Notice requirements interact with jurisdiction-specific rules about service: what counts as delivery, when a document is deemed received, whether electronic service is effective. Claude flags these intersections but doesn't have live access to the relevant rules. Run anything it flags through your research platform before advising on validity. What comes back is a direct answer: valid or not valid, and if not valid, the specific requirement that wasn't met and what would be needed to remedy it. That's the basis of your advice in under a minute. All 5 prompts are in the Claude for Lawyers Quick Wins PDF. Free download, link in the description. Each prompt is copy-ready with the specifics in brackets. You fill in your party name, paste in your clause, add the relevant facts, and run it. There's also a time-saved callout for each one, and a note on when to be most careful with the output. While you're at the Gumroad page, the Solicitor's Claude Kit is there too. If these 5 prompts give you a sense of what Claude can do for document work, the kit installs 3 automated skills directly into Claude: contract review, advice letter, and file note, that run with 2 words rather than a typed prompt. The contract review skill runs the full 4-pass document triage automatically. It's the next level up from what we've covered today. Part 2 of the Quick Wins series, 5 Wins for Client Communication, is coming in a few episodes. File notes from email chains, court order translations, advice letter summaries, letters before action. Subscribe so you don't miss it. 5 prompts, 5 document tasks: clause redraft, obligations extraction, defined term sheet, version comparison, notice compliance check. Each one under 2 minutes. Each one replacing something that currently takes 15 minutes or more. Free PDF in the description. All 5 prompts, copy ready. That's the episode. See you in the next one.